Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we have another deep dive for you. This time it is the big snakes of the Tyranid Codex. We have the Trygon, the Trygon Prime, and the Mawloc. Now rejuvenated, or a new look of them coming from the 8th edition Codex. So definitely worth sitting around and listening to best ways you can use these models. If that all sounds good to you, please like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. And if you do want to help support the growth of this channel just a bit more, do consider becoming a member. You get access to member exclusive videos, Discord, and all sorts of other goodies. So if that all sounds good, let's dive into today's video. So like I said, today we are going to go over the big snakes of the Tyranid Codex. We'll start with the Trygon Prime, then we have the Trygon and the Mawloc. After that, we'll touch on some Hive fleet synergies, how to use them in different Hive fleets to maximize their potential. Some key combos, mainly this will surround the Trygon Prime because he can take Warlord traits and Relics. And then also do a little bit of a damage comparison at the end of the video. So Trygon Prime, he is very different, more or less, from where he was in the 8th edition Codex. He's got 10-inch move, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3+, which degrades as he degrades, strength and toughness 7, 14 wounds, which is very nice, 12 attacks, leadership 10, and a 3-up save. He's got a couple options. So he's got a shooting, which is 8 shots, it's strength 5, EP -2, damage 1. Don't count on them for doing damage, but they're important for hitting at least. He's got 3 tail options. You can give him a prehensile tail, a toxic spike, or a biostatic rattle. The toxic spike is basically just another swing with a talon. Nothing crazy there. The prehensile tail allows you 1 reroll hit and wound every time he fights, which is fine, but when you got 12 attacks, 1 reroll hit and wound is not huge or game changing. The one I like the most is the biostatic rattle, which is you roll 3d6, and if you beat the enemy's leadership until the end of that phase, each time the model makes an attack, a reroll of a hit roll cannot be rerolled, and wound rolls cannot be rerolled. So I like that one more. It's not going to come up as often as, say, just the toxic spike or the tail. Choose which one you like, but for those times where you go up against some units with rerolls, it's not a bad option. So his actual melee potential, didn't touch on that. He has Trygon Scything Talons, so you can't necessarily upgrade these with like Sides of Tyranid or anything. They're strength user, so 7, AP -3, damage 2, going down from his big D6 damage that he had before, now just a flat 2. It's okay with the 12 attacks. He can also take Adrenal Glands and Toxin Sacks to get him to strength 8, 11 inches of movement, or some unmodified hit rolls of 6 auto wounding thanks to the Toxin Sacks. Otherwise, he is a Synapse creature, so he does have the Shadow and the Warp and Synapse and everything that goes with that. He does have his own Imperative, which is probably one of the worst of the Imperatives, sadly, which allows you to explode, I believe, on 4+, and then all infantry explode on 6+ for 1 mortal wound. Is okay. Serpentine Coils, this is a great rule that all of our snakes have. Each time a melee attack is made against this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So now if you pair that with the biostatic rattle, you have -1 to hit and no rerolls, so that's good. Death Throes, closest enemy unit on a 6+, suffers D3 mortal wounds, that's his explosion. And then his command phase ability, because he is a Tyranid HQ, is pretty good. Bio Impulse, so you select a core unit within range, they get +1 to advance and charge for the turn. So you could stack that on some Raveners in Hive Fleet Kraken, or any Hive Fleet really, or even just put it on Warriors and get a good chunk of distance, an extra 2 inches on your movement if you're, stacking it with Onslaught and stuff. So that's Trygon Prime, pretty good overall stat line, interesting. You can see he'll target more of the medium to lighter infantry, really Space Marine intercessors are his sweet spot to go after. But we have the Trygon, so main difference here is that, actually the only difference here is that his leadership is lower because he's not a synapse creature. Otherwise his attacks and his upgrades are all the same. He is cheaper by 30 points, and yeah, that's it. He's exactly the same. You could make a pseudo Trygon Prime and give him the synaptic enhancement. He won't get any of the other upgrades like bio impulse and stuff, but he otherwise is exactly the same as a Trygon. This one is in the fast attack slot where the other one is in HQ. Then we have a Mawloc, a bit different of one. So the Mawloc is different to where he was before. He'll have some astonishing stats here. So you'll see 10-inch move, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength, toughness 7, 14 wounds, same. He's got 16 attacks this time, leadership 7 to 3 up save. He also has the same option for his tails, so take with those how you want them. But his Scything Talons are Mawloc Scything Talons. Their strength user AP -1, 1 damage only. So he's really going after those chaff 1 wound models, chewing them up as best he can with his 16 attacks. He's got a couple special rules, so we'll go over those because they require their own page. First off, his Tear from the Deep ability has completely changed. So how this works is in the command phase. So turn 1 command phase, you pick a point. Then in turn 2, or you could do it turn 2 to turn 3, or can't do turn 3 to 4, unless he is in reserve via other strats or something. So you pick a point in turn 1 command phase. Turn 2, he comes in on that point, and every enemy unit within 6 inches of the center of that marker, you roll a die for, adding 1 if it contains 6 to 10 models, adding 2 if it contains 11 or more models. On a 3 through 6, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 7+, that unit suffers D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And then the Mawloc is set up anywhere on the battlefield that is within 12 inches of the center of that marker and not within engagement range of any other model. And the Mawloc also has to note that it cannot charge if it is set up within 9 inches of any enemy models. That is a lot to take in. Essentially, you've got your bubble. Within 6 inches of your point you put down, enemies can take mortal wounds, but you can place him within 12 inches of that point. And it's important to note that it says within 12 inches, so he does not have to fit wholly within 12 inches. So you've got a lot of flexibility with the 12-inch bubble, especially since you don't have to be wholly within. And another thing to note, that they don't clarify this in here, but if you go through all the rules, if you physically cannot put your Mawloc down on that turn, then he is count as destroyed. So your opponent could, if they really want to, you put that marker down and they take their movement phase to tighten all of their units in one spot right behind or right around that marker. It could go 2 ways for you. 1, you will lose your Mawloc if they do it right. 2, their whole unit army is clumped up around that mark. So, you know, it's a little interesting, but it is what it is. He also has the rules -1 to hit him in combat because of his serpentine body, and his jaws is no longer an attack. It is a special rule. So each time the model is selected to fight, select 1 enemy unit, excluding vehicle units, within engagement range. Roll a d6, a 2 through 5 to take d3 mortal wounds, and on a 6, the enemy takes 3 mortal wounds. So, and you count as half strength for combat attrition because they're absolutely terrified that you just ate somebody like that, or multiple people like that. What is that? So now we have some Hive Fleet synergies we're going to consider. Let's first look at Hive Fleet Behemoth. Adrenal Glands plus Behemoth can get you all the way to strength 9 because Behemoth gives you +1 strength on the charge. Adrenal Glands will make you strength 8. Well, Strength 7 plus Adrenal Glands plus Behemoth gets you strength 9 on talents. You'll be wounding anything pretty much on 3s. Reroll charges are great out of Deep Strike because, you know, 9-inch charges are not reliable. A reroll always helps, a free reroll. And Behemoth does have a relic to bring these guys up to 1, Trygon Prime, up to damage 3, which greatly increases the damage that he can do. Now reduced damage by 1 models he's doing 2 wounds against, and he can go after 3 wound models and pop them 1 at a time instead of needing 2 attacks to kill 1. So great options in Behemoth there. High Fleet Kraken, one of my personal favorites. You can send these guys all around the board. Trygon missiles, you can give them basically with Opportunistic Advance, Adrenal Glands, and Onslaught. Give them a 19-inch move plus the charge, and if you take the +1 to charge, it's basically a 20-inch movement plus your charge. Kind of, because you can only charge within 12 inches still. So you make one really fast and really dedicated, plus the extra AP means they are now ignoring Armor of Contempt, which is really annoying. So Marines will only be getting 6-up saves against these guys instead of 5-up, so that just really combats the amount of damage they can do. And yeah, that's it. So that's it for Kraken. Hydra is an interesting one. So the adaptive trait for +1 to move gives them a +2 to move if you give them Adrenal Glands. So 12-inch movement makes them really fast. They also can count as 5 models for their whole outnumbering your opponent ability thing, which can give them +1 to hit. So if you have 1 Trygon versus 4 models, you will get +1 to hit. Or if you have a Trygon plus a few models against, you know, whatever else you outnumber, they can be hitting on 2s with Trygons, which will make those attacks be that much more reliable. High Fleet Jormangande is an interesting one. -1 to hit when 18 inches away for shooting, obviously. It does really increase their durability. High Fleet Jormangande is okay. The big thing with High Fleet Jormangande, and I'll touch on this in another slide, is that they're one of the few High Fleets that have access to the OBSEC models adaptive trait. So these guys could count as 5 models OBSEC. Just something to think about. High Fleet Gorgon sadly doesn't really benefit much here. You get a free reroll to wound, but when you got 12 attacks, it doesn't really help you too much. And then High Fleet Leviathan, you got a free reroll to hit, but a Trygon Prime can gain permanent transhuman, which could be good against heavy anti-tank. So we'll go into the custom High Fleet synergies, some things to consider when going through and making your list or preparing your list. I like to think of my High Fleet synergies while I'm making the list, not so much right at the start of the game. Maybe have 1 or 2 in mind that you're going to play around with. So High Fleet synergies: Hunt, +3 inches to consolidation. If you can get into combat, having 6-inch consolidations or pile-ins really does amp up the speed on your big guys. Augmented Ferocity, I do like this one a lot. +1 to your charge. It's nice and simple, and it just makes your charges more reliable. Ambush Predators, all units can perform heroic interventions. It's an okay one. It might come up so-so, but if you're playing with OBSEC, oh no, you're not. Never mind. Yeah, so it's an okay one. Lurk, this is the one I was talking about. Territorial Instincts, I think, is really good on Trygons and Mawlocs. Count as 5 models for OBSEC. That'll really, you'll gear your Hive Tyrants, your Trygons towards going after objectives and plinking off objective secured units and then stealing objectives with your big nasty Trygon. Feed has a couple of them that are okay. The exoskeletal stabilization, you can advance and fire their shooting weapons without penalty. Probably not something you're going to do, but it's an option. And then Relentless Hunger could be interesting. Each time this unit fails a charge, they can move 3 inches in any direction they want. So options there. Obviously, the ones I like the most are Territorial Instincts and Augmented Ferocity out of all of these. Now some stratagems to consider. There are a lot of them you can use with these 3 models. First one, Adrenal Surge. D3 extra attacks if you have Adrenal Glands. If you really need to pump up your damage, that's an option. Indomitable Monstrosity, 1 CP to give one of your big boys transhuman. Always good in a pinch. Voracious Appetite you will probably be using a lot on these models. Reroll all failed wound rolls, and when you're rocking around with 12 to 16 attacks a model, rerolling all your failed wound rolls is going to be huge. And Circle the Prey is great because you can get extra turns of your Mawlocs deep striking bubble up. So you could, turn 1, you put your marker down. Turn 2, you do your thing. Turn 3, you encircle the prey. Turn 4, you plop down another marker in your command phase, and turn 5 they deep strike. If your Mawloc survives that whole time, actually I think the Mawloc can come in I don't know. I think it is turn 5, so you could have a Mawloc pop in turn 5, and if he's obsec, that could be huge. So that one's there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see any reason that says you can't do the Terror from the Deep 2 times in a row or 2 times per battle with Encircle the Prey. But if I've totally missed something, let me know. I haven't noticed that one yet. I think, as far as I'm aware, you can do that. Shard Lure is great for your Trygon primes because it can benefit themselves. Those piddly little 8 shots I talked about, you can use to pop up, shoot, Shard Lure something, and now they themselves will have, out of Deep Strike, a 3d6 pick 2 for charging. And if you're in Behemoth, that could be a free reroll. So really reliable charges right out of Deep Strike with a little bit of CP help. Overrun obviously is a great one because they are so fast. You could look at, you say your opponent's got two models on 2 different objectives. You could hit one unit, wipe them off the objective, and then use Overrun to fall back onto a different objective, and maybe you steal that one because you're obsec. Now you potentially just flip the tides of having maybe 2 to 3 objectives to having 3 to 1 objective. So can be good for stealing secondaries from your opponent using Encircle the Prey, or if you just want to get your Trygon out of harm's way after killing something, always an option too. And then Subterranean Assault is the special one for the Trygon primes, which is they can bring a troop unit in from reserve. If they're wholly within 9, it could be okay for putting a block of warriors. Maybe you're playing Leviathan and you want to drop a block of warriors right on the center of the table. For 1 CP, you can do it. Now your opponent could have 2 nasty things they got to deal with. Can't use it on the Mawloc, and you still have to be wholly within 9 inches of the Trygon or Trygon Prime. So it's an option. It's just with the changes to CP and you only have very limited numbers to work with at the start of the game, you're going to be hard pressed to maybe want to do this way instead of taking like a pod and doing it for free, if that makes sense. Now we'll go into some combos here for the Trygon Prime because they can take Relics and Warlord traits. So first one that I really like on the Trygon Prime is the Seer Hive. So this one you need Toxin Sacs to do, but how it works is all hits auto wound automatically. So if you got your 12 attacks, roll them all. On average, you should get 8 hits. That is just 8 flat out wounds at the AP. Maybe you've got some way to get you to hit better. There is something, we'll talk about that. Great one. If you want something that's really good for snagging your opponent's objectives, right off the bat, the Passenger one is great. It's +2 to advance and charge. So now you're looking at dropping a Trygon Prime in. He only needs a 7-inch charge. If you really want, you can do Shard Lure or any other strats to get that to be a 3d6-inch charge or free reroll charge or whatever you need to do. Very good at stealing some objectives, especially if you can make them obsec there. The Maw Claws, if you just want a more killy one, gets +1 attacks. You're rocking 13 attacks. Re-roll your failed wound rolls. Great. You don't have to use a Voracious Appetite on them every turn. And then for every unit they kill, they will get +1 attack. So you could have a Trygon Prime at the end of the game rocking around with 16 attacks. And I think this one is good on the Trygon Prime because the units you want to go after are those smaller 5 to 10 man cheaper units. So your Space Marine player who just has a whole bunch of 5-man intercessor squads. Those are the things you want to hunt down with your Trygon because he will have no problem wiping out all 5 of those. So could be easy to mulch up some kills that way, or if you tag him in with other units and he does the finishing blow, give him that extra attack. Warlord traits to consider. So heightened senses, I think it's great on a Hive Tyrant with a Venom Cannon and Lash with Bone Sword because it's all hit rolls. But even more, another option for heightened senses is the Seer Hive combo. So heightened senses lets you reroll all your hit rolls. With the Seer Hive, every hit roll is an auto wound. So you are on average easily going to be doing 10 auto wounds with the Trygon Prime. Don't have to worry. Now, I believe the Seer Hive, you can't do it against vehicles and monsters. Correct me if I'm wrong there, or if I'm right. Let me know if I'm right. But still, you're not really going after those. You want to go after your infantry, and 10 auto wounds is an easy way to deal with a lot of infantry. Adaptive Biology, you could just give him 5 Feeling Pain. It's really your only durability buff you can give to the Trygons outside of one turn of having an invuln save on the Prime or paying for an invuln save on the regular Trygon. But for the Trygon Prime, you just have one turn of a 4-up invuln save from your Zoanthropes, and that's it. So 5-up Feeling Pain could go a long way. Synaptic Tendrils, if you're playing very aggressive, you want to give 2 units +1 to charge and +1 to advance. That could be very good. Maybe you give 1 to Jormangande and 1 to Raveners, and then you can use both of those strats for opportunistic advance if you're Kraken, or you can use the Jormangande base charge. Now your Jormangandes get auto 6-inch advance. You can't get +1 to that. It's just a flat 6-inch charge, but you get, or 6-inch advance, but you do get the +1 to your charge. So that could be pretty good. Also, if you don't want to play the OBSEC adaptive trait, you could just give them Alien Cunning and make them OBSEC and count as 5 models. Another way to go around it there. Personally, I think my favorite way to do it is to go with Heightened Senses and Seer Hive. It's really fun to do that much damage, but you could also, I think a passenger one is a fun option as well. And with the changes to Warlord traits and Relics, you probably want to limit your Warlord traits and Relics as much as possible. Now, we have a few options for the Trygon and Mawlocs. So again, these are the adaptive physiologies. I think a 4-up invuln can go a long way. Enraged Reserves can also go a long way. Synaptic Enhancement can be good for things like deep striking, putting Shard Lure out, or if you want to try something with the Mawloc, put the Mawloc out, and now he can deep strike. Maybe you have other units close or who will get in range to hand off synaptic imperatives, things like that could be good. The precognitive sensoria, which is they fight first in the fight phase at all times, that could also be a sneaky one to put on Trygons if you have the points, just because, I mean, if they don't kill what they're going to kill the first round of combat, hopefully killing them on the second round. It's a cheaper upgrade, so take those what you will. I think maybe if you're going to run any Trygons at all besides Trygon Primes, I would probably go for Dermic Symbiosis if you haven't already put it on another unit. And then I would probably do Synaptic Enhancement if you haven't put it on another unit. The imperatives that the Trygon will benefit from. We've got the Zoanthropes, obvious invuln save. Warriors getting 6s to hit count as 2 when you have that many attacks is great. Tyrgon for +2 inches to move. If you're going to be running one of those that's going to want to run up the board, advance and charge with Onslaught, huge speed potential there. Fall back and charge is also a great option with the Hive Tyrant in case you want to disengage from one unit and then go tie up another unit deeper into your opponent's enemy lines. That's a good chance. And Parasite isn't horrible for a 3-inch extra consolidation or pile-in, but consider those when building your Trygons. Playstyles, we've kind of already talked about these a bit, so I will not go too heavy into these, but you can read the slides if you want more there. So the Trygons and Trygon Primes, like I said, these are going to be your medium to light infantry hunters. They're going to be hunting the ones on the objective, doing that trading, but being a tough unit to trade with because they are so consistent at killing things like intercessors and stuff, as well as being pretty durable, and if you play them with OBSEC, giving them OBSEC. I do really like the passenger for the deep strike, making them pretty easy deep strikes popping up. Seer Hive I already mentioned. I love the Seer Hive one as well. Overrunning, moving these things around the board as fast as you can. But yeah, the main goal with these ones, don't throw these into your enemy's Terminators. They will bounce off. They'll maybe kill a few. Throw these into the lighter infantry. Mawloc, disruption unit, as normal. Giving them Synapse can be fun because then you can pop them in, and on that turn 2, give everything the 4-up info and save. Now they've got this annoying big unit in their backline, which can kill normally your chaff that's hiding in the backline, or at least tie them up. But with a 4-up info and save, they're going to be tough to deal with if you give them that synaptic enhancement there. They can steal objectives if your opponent's not careful, because they can pop up only 6 inches away from your opponent. So if they don't have quite the right setup on an objective, they could steal it from them. And then, yeah, they can maybe kill a few models in combat. AP -1, damage 1 is nothing crazy, but it can kill some lighter stuff. So that's all of that. Now we just have damage comparisons. I'll kind of show you how these things work out. So again, this is our standard loadout. No one has commented otherwise that they want us to change up what we're targeting. So we're going to stick with our standard 6 enemies. And then for our 6 units we are using to compare, we have a standard Trygon Prime. We're going to show you Trygon Prime with Adrenal Glands just to see what that's worth. Then we're going to show you a Trygon Prime with the Seer Hive and Heightened Senses, because I do like that one. And then we're going to show off a Behemoth Prime with Adrenal Glands and the Mutated Monstrosity, I think is what that's called, Relic, which makes them damage 3. So first off, you can see the standard Trygon Prime does do a great job of just wiping out low model count infantry, or low wound count infantry. Struggles on the higher stuff because it is only 2 damage a piece, and then obviously reduced damage by 1 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. It really struggles against, but Imperial Knights, it does okay. Adrenal Glands does bump up the Trygon Prime to killing a 5-man unit of intercessors on average, killing 2 Terminators. Like I said, stay away from those things, and then doing a bit more damage to the Redemptors and the Imperial Knight. Seer Hive one I love very much. 10 Guardians just wiped off the board like that. Now if they do have one of those annoying little platforms, that means 1 will be still alive, though you don't really have to worry about 1 Guardian making a morale check or anything, especially if you're OBSEC, they won't care. 7 Intercessors, 2.6 Terminators, that helps a bit. 2.6 of the Tau Crisis Suits, and then again, not really anything on the Redemptors or the Imperial Knights. The Behemoth one, Adrenal Glands and Mutated Monstrosity. So these guys are strength 9 because they're Behemoth. So we got, again, 7 Eldari. There's only so much you can do against little things. 5 Intercessors are killed. 4 Terminators. So this is a good one I would potentially throw at Terminators when you got damage 3. 2.6 of the Crisis Suits. 8 damage to the Redemptor. But a massive 18 damage to the Imperial Knight. Because you're going to strength 9 and you're wounding it on 3s, they're only going to get 6-up saves in combat. With all of those attacks, 18 damage is going to be a lot for your opponent to watch out for. So if you got a Knight player, probably consider bringing these against him. Obviously going to take 1. And the Mawloc, to really show that it's not here to do damage, just be an annoyance and a distraction. It kills 6 Guardians, it kills 1.5 Intercessors, doesn't even drop a Terminator or a Crisis Suit, and 2 piddly damage to the Knight and the Redemptor. So really, yeah, it really lands home with what the Trygons are meant to be killing. They don't kill a ton, but the first 2 columns, unless you're bringing the Behemoth boy, the first 2 columns is really where you want to be focusing what the Trygons and Mawlocs can deal with. So in conclusion, with these models, one thing I do worry about with the current point situation is that a Screamer Killer with Adrenal Glands is significantly cheaper than a Trygon Prime. It's a bit cheaper than a Trygon still, yet the Screamer Killer is just as killy, if not killier, to the right targets for it. There are less wounds. Sure, they have 5 less wounds or 6 less wounds, but that's okay. The Screamer Killers are just as fast, almost as many attacks, better armor save, better, equal toughness, lower strength depending on what you're, well, lower to equal strength. So I will see how the point changes come out soon, but if Screamer Killers don't get a point bump and these guys don't get a point decrease, then it's hard to say take a Trygon Prime and don't take a Screamer Killer. The one exception to that is if you're playing the OBSEC rule, Screamer Killers count as 1 OBSEC and the others count as 5. So only 1 turn of Invuln can really hurt the Prime. Being something you're putting so many resources into, only getting 1 turn of an Invuln save, 2, maybe more if you're Leviathan, but it does hurt the Prime there as well. Mawloc can be good. It can be very gimmicky. Against certain lists, it's just not going to do what it needs to at all. But against some others, if your opponent's playing a little more castle-y, a little more light in the backfield, a Mawloc running around there, maybe targeting, you know, Devastator squads or whatever your opponent has for long-range shooting, tying up tanks or something, it can be pretty good. I think they do both Trygons. In the current balance of points, I think they need a little bit of a point drop. At least maybe the Trygon Primes could get a bit of a point drop. Maybe the Trygons too. We'll see what GW does. I doubt it, but I think they could. I still think they're very fun to use. You haven't seen them on the channel. I've only used them once, I think, a Trygon Prime. Personally, I think Behemoth, Jormangande, or Kraken are the best ones to do. Kraken if you want pure offense, and then Behemoth and Jormangande are the ones that can take access to the Count as 5 model OBSECs. So I think I lean towards Behemoth over Jormangande. Whatever your army is playing with, it's easy to slot one of these things in. Now let me know. I have been drawing up a list where it uses three Trygon Primes, 2 Trygons, 2 Mawlocs, 2 units of Raveners, and then like a Neurothrope and some other Gaunts. It would cost a lot of CP, especially with the new changes. You wouldn't have many to start. Actually, you'd probably only have like 1 or 2 CP to start, but it could be a lot of fun throwing all those big snakes on the table. I don't have the models to do that, but I really want to see if I can find some to borrow just to throw that many big snakes on the table. So that's pretty much all I got. Let me know what you guys think of the big snakes. Are you having a lot of success with them? Are they a little more gimmicky, not competitive, but still decent? Let me know your opinions. Let everyone else know down in the comments. That's all we got for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you members for supporting us, and we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.